Thank you, and welcome to our webinar series devoted to a topic that our presenters, as well as collaborative learning solutions, are very passionate about, which is educator wellness. For today's webinar, What About Me? Nurturing our own mental and emotional wellness, we will first focus on the self-experiencing timely and practical strategies to regulate stress and prioritize your needs. My name is Dawn, and I will be your moderator today. I'll be behind the scenes supporting the presenters with monitoring the chat and any tech issues that may arise. Now, to share a little bit about our company, Collaborative Learning Solutions, CLS, is a K-12 educational consulting organization based out of Phoenix, Arizona. We have over 10 years of serving as a thought partner for schools, districts, and states, regional and county offices, helping to develop school climate guidelines and accountability systems that create safer, more supportive, and thriving learning environments. Now I'd like to introduce our two presenters for today, Otzi Sanchez and Jenna Cataletta. Both Otzi and Jenna are educational consultants at Collaborative Learning Solutions for over 3 years. Jenna brings a wealth of experience as a former special education teacher, behavior interventionist, and district coordinator. Her passion for educator wellness inspired her to become a certified mindfulness and meditation teacher in 2020. Since then, Jenna has been an advocate for prioritizing teacher care through creating and facilitating educator wellness workshops. Otzi's experience has primarily been in mental health as a licensed marriage and family therapist with several years' experience providing mental health support on school campuses. She brings this background into her work with educators in supporting the needs of students, as well as advocating for the needs of educators. Together, this dynamic duo are continuously inspired and motivated to be champions for educator mental and emotional wellness, speaking nationally on the imperative of this topic, along with facilitating teacher wellness and workshops across the country.
Excellent. Thank you, Dawn. All right. So thank you again for everybody for attending today. We are just going to start this time, considering that we are going to be talking about wellness. We just want to take a moment to set some intentions, to ground ourselves to where we're at. Obviously, it's been a busy day, I'm sure, for most. And so we want to just bring ourselves into the moment, into the space, take our time, and just get as present as we can to where we're at today. So just sit back in your chair, get comfortable, take a moment to connect with your breath, with your intention. Sitting in our physical space, sitting within the body, take a couple of deep breaths. And we just want the intention to be fully with ourselves, with others in the room. Continue to breathe. And allow yourself to just be present here. Okay, so we are going to move into our community norms. We just want to make sure that we are trying to stay as present as we can, both physically and mentally. Sometimes we are physically present and our mind is distracted. We're in different places. So we just want folks to feel as connected as possible. Be honest. Obviously, you don't have to do a lot of sharing within our webinar, but we want you to just be honest with yourself, really gauge where you're at, maintain your awareness, lean in. This this training is pretty jam-packed with a lot of different strategies and tools to use. So we're going to ask you to practice with us. So feel free to jump in there. It is a safe space. There are a couple things in here that might feel a little uncomfortable or embarrassing or something. And of course, your faces are not on the screen. So feel free to just really get into it and try everything that we have to offer today. We also want you to be mindful of whatever your personal needs are. Sometimes getting into these conversations can bring up a bit of just thoughts about the past, thoughts about past traumas. So if you do feel a need that's arising for you, please be mindful and be sure to take care of that need. You were sent a handout. So you should have received that in your email. If not, Dawn looks like she already did put a copy of the link in there for you. You will have to download it, so it is fillable unless you wanted to print it, then that's obviously an option as well. If you don't want to use the note-taking guide, you don't have to. We just do want you to have a pen and a piece of paper for one of the exercises that we're going to try a little bit later. However, the note taker guide does have a link to some resources. So we do at some point encourage you to take advantage of that. And I believe that's it. Jenna, am I forgetting anything on that?
No, I think you nailed it.
Awesome. Okay, great. All right, so let's jump into our connection next. Dawn, thank you, Dawn. Dawn put in a rating scale for you there. So just while you're kind of checking in with where you're at, with how you're feeling today, thinking about your day, rate your stress level as you enter the space. So 1 being the least stressed, I'm just calm, relaxed, and I'm ready to go. 5 being the absolutely most stressed. Feel free to put in your rating there. And if you are using your note catcher, there is a space for additional notes in case there's anything coming up for you that you wanted to jot down for yourself or just take note of. Okay, and all right, are we able to see the results on that? Ah,
There we go.
yes, we are. And it looks like we have kind of a nice range on there. We've got a couple folks that are feeling smooth and easy, and others that are a little more on the mid to higher range of stress. All right, thank you very much, everybody. We're going to move on to just one more connection. And for this one, we're going to ask you to add your responses to the chat. So just thinking about when you hear the word self-care, what are the first things that come to mind there? So just thinking about it, when I hear self-care, when somebody mentions self-care, what do I think of first? And if there you go, add some responses to the chat.
So we have time, dress up, yoga, alone time, quiet, needed.
Absolutely. Sleep. Oh, that's a great one.
Exercise, healthy eating, and hydration.
All right, those are some good ones. And these are really common responses when we've done this, this training in the past. We hear some of that exercise and yoga and healthy eating and good sleeping. Sometimes you hear spas, sometimes you hear massages. And yes, absolutely. All of those things are wonderful. And what often happens is we just don't have the time, right? We don't necessarily have the resources to go get a massage on a daily basis or have the time to go out on a hike or even the time sometimes to take a bath, right? Sometimes we just get in and out of the shower really quickly and we don't have a lot of time for much else. So thankfully, that's what we are going to be talking about today is giving you some strategies to use that can be used in real time on a regular daily routine basis that you're not going to have to spend a ton of money and time in order to be able to do. So having boundaries, that's a great one too. We'll be talking about that later.
Oh,
Debbie Sachs is on it for that one.
Ah.
All right, so I'm going to be handing it over to Jenna, who's going to be talking to us about our brains on stress.
yeah. So when we think about our own wellness, oftentimes something that gets in the way of us being able to take care of ourselves the way we need to in order to support others is time. We hear about time a lot, and we hear about stress and how stress impacts us. So we're going to be looking a little bit about stress. The first thing that we want to note when it comes to stress is that actually a little bit of stress under normal circumstances is actually a gift. Like, what? Jenna just said that. Yes, I just said that. We need a little bit of stress to help motivate us. We need a little bit of stress to even learn. So those of you that are attending, whether you're attending live or you're watching the recording, if your brain was in a very, very calm, relaxed state, it actually would be harder for you to retain the information. So we need a little bit of a kickstart in our sympathetic nervous system in order for us to pay attention. And that's what stress is. So on the right, when we see when stress is predictable, when it's moderate, mild to moderate amount, like what we saw on the scale, 1, 2, even 3 at times, it's easy for you to manage. You have control over it. We actually build more tolerance, we strengthen our nervous system, and we build resilience, which we all need. When stress becomes too much and even toxic at times is when it's unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen next in our day-to-day lives. It feels extreme and it's prolonged. The duration of stress is long. That's when our nervous systems can become sensitized and lead to vulnerability. And we may feel that when it comes to professional caregivers and educators in the field, we may feel our stress be at that point of being oversensitized, as well as sometimes our students can feel that. So let's look at stress on the brain some more. What does sensitization in the brain look like in a state of stress? So we're going to do an activity to help model this. This is called Brain in the Palm of Your Hand by Dr. Daniel Siegel. Some of you may be familiar with this. So I'm going to have you follow along with me. So you're going to put your hand up like this, right or left hand, it doesn't matter. And then with your other hand, you're going to point down here to your wrist. And if this was the model of the brain, this would be our brain stem. So our brain stem is where our brain is connected to our spinal cord. It's part of our autonomic nervous system, so there's no thinking going on here. The main point of the autonomic nervous system is straight up survival. So it keeps our heart beating, it keeps our blood pulsing through our body, it helps us with regulating sleep, eyes blinking, all the things we do automatically that we don't think of. Now we're going to fold our thumb in here. Our thumb is our midbrain or our limbic brain. This is also our mammalian brain. And the limbic system is the hub of our emotions. It's also the part of our brain where it initially kicks into fight, flight, or freeze. So a part of our brain that's been getting a lot of attention these days when we talk about stress is the amygdala. And we can think of the amygdala as the bodyguard. So the bodyguard is up on a watchtower and they're scanning our external environment at all times looking for threats. Now, with our amygdala and threats, we know thousands and thousands of years ago, threats looked very different than they do today, right? We don't have to run from bears and fight for our lives most of the time. So we don't need our amygdala for that, but oftentimes our amygdala may keep us safe for very subjective things that feel unsafe for us in our external environment. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. All right, let's fold down here. Now we have our full brain, and the top brain right here is called our prefrontal cortex. That's this spot right here on our forehead. We like to refer to this spot as our wise leader. So when we think about when we show up as teachers and educational staff or administrators on campus, we want to be here. This is where our logic, our reason, our best thinking, our creativity lies. Now, when it comes to stress and what stress does on the body, oftentimes we want to be here, but we may not show up in this brain stem. So what that, this particular brain state, excuse me. So what that looks like is maybe you didn't get a lot of sleep. Sleep's been very hard for you because of the level of stress that you've had in your classroom. So you wake up and your top brain's just a little bit offline. Then you get in your car, you're rushing, you spill coffee all over yourself, lots of traffic, you're starting to feel anxious and worried about getting into the classroom on time. You finally get into your classroom, rushing. You drop a few things, pick them up. You get to your class maybe 5 minutes before the bell, kids rush in, they're really loud. And then you have a student come up to you and they say, I don't have a pencil and I need a pencil. And then what do? We what's called flip our lid. Our top brain completely goes offline, and we may act and behave in a way that is totally against our moral values, right? We may lose our temper, and we may say and do things that is not in our best interest to ourselves or for the students. But just to know, when this does happen, this is actually our human stress response system to keep us safe. But the problem was we were in such a high level of state to begin with when we came into the classroom that we easily flip our lids sometimes throughout the day. And even if you hold it together, oh my gosh, patience with the students. And we get home and then your partner says, why didn't you unload the dishwasher when you get home? Then we may flip our lid when we get home. So if that happens to you, please know that is normal. And this part of our brain is here to keep us safe. What Otzi and I are hoping to bring to you today is a way to bring down your stress level. So when you get to the classroom, you're not at a stage of being close to flipping your lid and high levels of stress throughout the day. Another thing that really can impact us when it comes to being teachers, professional caregivers, administrators, is the amount of stress that we care for ourselves and also for others. When we are asked to show up for others and students that are struggling, we tend to sometimes unintentionally take on some of their needs, even our family's needs. And we have a few visuals here to show us that, right? Even the visual of like carrying all of these bags and like, just keep going, I'm fine. Or even the visual here of, the past traumas that sometimes that we carry. And then the smallest thing happens for us and we may lose it, or we may see our students do that. So we wanted to give you a moment here and just think about this simple question: what are you carrying that you no longer need? What are you carrying that is not yours to carry? Maybe it's a worry. Maybe it's a belief. Maybe it's a stressor. And just an opportunity to note that, and maybe even set an intention to let go of that. And we'll talk more about how to do that in a minute. We'll just give you a minute to do that in your notes or on your piece of paper. Okay. So we're going to get into talking about how do we manage our stress. We know we're in a high level of stress. We had a few of you even say that you're in a 4. So that's, about to go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. How do we manage our stress? Well, the good news is we have in our autonomic nervous system, we have our sympathetic nervous system. That is the part of our nervous system that bumps you up and gets you going and gets you into alert mode and even fight, flight, or freeze or fawn. And then we have our parasympathetic nervous system. And we can think of our parasympathetic nervous system as the brakes that slow us down. And oftentimes we go, and we do. When it comes to sitting down, trying to relax, we don't even know how to do that. So we may pick up our phone or keep ourselves busy. We have to tap into the parasympathetic nervous system, and we have to strengthen that part of our nervous system in order to know how to relax. It's like a skill we have to teach ourselves. So a part of the parasympathetic nervous system we're going to talk about today is the vagus nerve. So we're going to watch a quick little video, and then we're going to talk about it and do an exercise. And Ozzy, just let me know you can hear the sound, okay? Okay, just a quick little video about the vagus nerve, some of the benefits and some of the strategies on how to strengthen the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is one of the largest nerves in the body. It starts at the base of the brain and it goes through all of our major internal organs, and then it ends at the base of the spine or the tailbone. And so when we're looking at some of those potential benefits, why, gut health is so important, why deep belly breathing is so important, and even humming, is because that nerve runs through all of those spots in our body. So the way that we can tap into it, strengthen, and utilize the benefits of the vagus nerve, calm, improving our digestion, and supporting us with just feeling more grounded in the body, is to tap into some of the spots where it's in the body. So we're going to combine breathing and humming in our next exercise to tap into the vagus nerve and feel the benefits of that parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, so this is a quick strategy. It's one of my favorites, and I always say it looks a little funny, but man, are the benefits really, they outweigh the silliness. And it's great to do with kids too. It's great to do throughout the day. And wherever you're at, whether you're about to flip your lid or you're just feeling a little stressed out, it's a good one to help with feeling calm and regulated. So what we're going to do is we're going to get in that calm and alert state. So we're going to have a tall, straight spine, shoulders down. If you have earbuds in or headphones, I'm going to ask you to take those off in a minute because you're going to be plugging your ears. Okay, so I'm going to model what it looks like, and then we're going to do 3 together, okay? So we're going to take a deep breath in through the nose. We're going to hold it. And then when we exhale, we're going to plug our ears gently. And when we exhale, we're going to exhale out of the nose and make a humming sound. It's going to look like this. Okay, so we're going to do that 3 times. The last time, I'm actually going to ask you, if it feels comfortable for you, do a little bit of rocking. That'll help with connecting to your brainstem and the vagus nerve, okay? So we're going to do 3 together. Ready? Deep inhale. Hold. Plug your ears. Exhale, make that humming sound like a bee. Again, inhale through the nose. Hold. Plug. Exhale with a hum. Last one. Inhale. Hold. Plug. And out. And rock. And before we jump back, just take a moment to be with your body and just notice how you feel. Maybe make some notes on your note catcher. Wherever your stress was at the beginning of the presentation, just take a note where it is now. Now, the deep belly breathing, the humming, that engages our parasympathetic nervous system as well as the rocking. Rocking can be greatly beneficial to calm the nervous system for you as well as your students. So any kind of rhythm or rocking is incredibly soothing. And we can connect that back to when we felt really, really safe and regulated was when we were in our mother's womb and we had that swooshing back and forth, back and forth. That's why we tend to do that automatically with our babies to give them that sense of calm and relaxation. That's even why sometimes we see when, you know, our students need to go to the bathroom and they're kind of bouncing up and down. They're actually just regulating their nervous system. So that rocking and that rhythm can be greatly beneficial to help us calm down. Okay, so now we looked at our stress on the brain. Let's look at our brains and what the brain does and the present moment. So we are going to do an activity. It's called the wandering mind activity. This is a quick little activity. You're going to need your hand, or you can use a blank piece of paper. So if you have a white piece of paper, that's fine too, just something to stare at. So either your hand or a blank piece of paper. Okay. Now, Ossie's going to model it for us as I guide you. Okay, so this is going to be like a game. And what your job is you are going to put all of your attention on your hand or that white piece of paper. Nothing else. So all your attention on your hand or your white piece of paper. We don't want to think of anything else. We don't want to do anything else. Okay, so when I say go, that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus all attention on our hand. And then if you do notice that your mind wanders, whether it does or not, I just want you to see about how long the mind, when the mind starts to wander. Okay, go ahead and go. Remember all of our attention on our hand or that white piece of paper. All of our attention on our hand. Okay, go ahead and stop. You can put your hand down if your hand is up. Now, in the chat, if you were able to notice, one, if your mind started to wander to anything but hand, present moment, right? That's what you were asked to do. If you notice that, at what point, how many seconds did your mind start to wander? Just put the number in by seconds in the chat. 2, 25, 10, yeah, maybe, it's hard to tell, 3 seconds, 6, 5. Yeah, the noticing sometimes is the hardest part because oftentimes our brains are perpetually bouncing back and forth between future thinking and past thinking, and we don't even realize we're not in the present moment anymore. So we were asked to focus on one thing at a time, right? And many of us, it was hard for us. I think 25 seconds was the longest that we saw. On average, for an adult, the amount of seconds that our brain can focus on one particular stimulus at a time without getting distracted is about 8 seconds. And that was before COVID and before a lot of us are really using technology these days. So I would say that's probably even lower. And that's interesting to think about because, you know, who's in charge really of our brain? If we had the task of focusing on that one particular stimulus, but we lost track of it, who's in charge of our brain? Well, of course we are. But what happens to our attention? Where does it go? And how can we strengthen our brains to be more primed and focusing on the present? So what we just experienced is something that's really natural in our brain. It's called the default mode network. It's also lovingly coined the monkey mind. And that means what the brain does to keep us safe is perpetually bouncing between stimulus that's coming in the present moment, comparing that to past experiences, and then predicting what's going to happen in our future. Okay. And we bounce chronically back and forth between worrying about the past and thinking about what's going to happen in the future. Now, the mind tends to feel like, we use this example, it tends to feel like this brand new puppy. And we're so excited about the brand new puppy. And we get a shiny leash and we're like, I'm going to go on a walk with my puppy. Like, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do something calming. I'm going to do that bee breathing that Jenna said to do. So we go to do some kind of exercise with our mind. But what we may find is it may feel like what it feels like to walk a new puppy on a leash, right? So we envision it being one thing and we go and the puppy's pulling us, it's biting its leash, it's barking, it's pooping in our neighbor's yard. It's incredibly erratic. And that's what the mind feels like sometimes. Sometimes we have stimulus coming and going in our mind, and we may even have thoughts that don't feel like ours. The good news is, through having a very simple routine of slowing down and either mindfulness or meditation throughout the day, we can actually strengthen and prime our brain to be more present with ourselves and each other. And we're going to talk about the benefits, why that's so important and why so many people talk about being present. Okay, we're going to play another game. This one's really fun. So this one's called the game of breathing. It's also called mind mapping. I think on your note catcher, it is called the game of breathing. And you're going to need some materials. So you're going to need something to write with. And you're going to need a blank piece of paper, ideally. If you don't have a blank piece of paper and you have a lined piece of paper, that's fine, or construction, whatever you got, grab it. So I'll give you a minute to grab those materials. Otzi, do you have your phone handy? Would you be able to time for us when we get there?
Sure thing.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going to do an activity. And the purpose of this activity is just to simply see, well, when my mind wanders, when the mind does its thing and it's in monkey mind mode, where does my attention go? Okay. So we're going to connect our breath with our writing utensil. So when we breathe in, we're going to make an upward motion on our paper. When we breathe out, we're going to make a downward motion on our paper. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. This is where we want our attention to be, okay? When you notice that your mind wanders anywhere beyond the motion of the pen and your breath, I want you to stop and I want you to note where your mind went. For instance, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. Oop, I just noticed I'm a little sweaty physical sensation. I'm going to write that down. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. Oh, I just got distracted. I'm hungry. I'm thinking about what to make for dinner. I'm going to write that down. Okay. Let the pen do its thing, just as long as it's connecting to your breath. You can have big movements, small movements. It doesn't matter. Okay. There's no right way to do that. I'm going to pause for questions in the chat just to ensure that you understand the expectation. All right, let's get started. We're only going to do this for 1 minute. Normally we do it with 5, and sometimes that's hard for people. We're just going to do it 1 minute for today for you all. Okay, Otzi, go ahead and get started. And
All right,
you may
start. That's time.
All right, go ahead and finish. If you are writing something down, go ahead and finish that thought. And then put your pen down. And just take a look at your mind map. And what do you notice about it? And then if there's anything on your mind map that surprises you. So we're just going to look at it with curiosity. And then I invite you to put it in the chat. Anything that you noticed about your mind map, maybe where your attention went. Dinner. I normally have that one. I didn't have that one this time, Dawn. Tired, yawning, thinking about work. Hop. I might need more context for that one, Flo. The thunderstorm rolling through and vacation packing. Yep, so we can get distracted by outside external in our environment. I had sound of my dog. The air conditioning was distracting. And then we can be distracted by internal stimulus as well. I focus and then have a series of random thoughts, but then regain focus afterwards. Good insight. Top end summit. Okay. What about lines? Did we notice anything with our lines? Otzi, did you do one?
I didn't do one, but I can tell you what I've experienced in the past doing this is that I start to challenge myself as I'm breathing, so my lines get longer as I continue on through the time.
Yeah, we've seen that. So we do a lot of wellness workshops in person together as well. And that's typically what we see when we have people share their mind maps, if they feel comfortable. Usually the lines are really rigid, and sometimes we're even worried about the rigidness of our lines, and our breath might be short to mimic our lines, and then they become more fluid and flowy and longer with the duration of a longer breath. Yeah, and Deborah said the drawing helped me stay focused. Yeah, connecting the body, the physical body, with the mind can really help us be present. So thinking of being present, what is the hype with gotta be present, just be present? Is there research to back that up? Well, when it comes to research, we like to use this research. It was from 2013, and it was a very, very large scale research by Matt Killingsworth. He has a TED Talk on it. So if you are interested in this research, you can Google his name, and his talk is fantastic. But he is a happiness researcher, and he wanted to know, like, what's up with the big thing about being present? Does it actually make you happier? So his research study involved 15,000 people, 650,000 participants. I mean, real-time responses. I'll talk about those responses. 86 occupations in 80 countries. So this happened all over the world. And what it was technology on the phone. And the participants had random times throughout the day where an alarm would go off. They would have to stop. They would have to note what they're doing. And if their mind was present or not. And if their mind wasn't present, what were they thinking about? Because Matt was like, okay, well, maybe if we're not present, but we're thinking about the vacation, like Kathy was saying, are we happier? And so after they note where they're at, where their mind was, what they were thinking about, if they were present, they then rate their level of happiness. And what he found from this large scale study was that when the mind was present, focused, fully saturated on the activity, even if it was a mundane activity like doing the dishes, that the participant had a greater perceived rate of happiness. Even more if I'm doing the dishes, but my mind is wandering to a vacation. So that speaks to when we're with our students, when we're with our significant others, we will have a greater perceived sense of happiness and even enriching conversation and relationship when we can be more present with ourselves and with each other. But it does take work, just like that puppy on a leash. All right, we're going to go to another activity. As Otzi said, we do a lot of experiential learning in quick time. So for this one, you can use your same piece of paper. You can flip it over. I think the note catcher, am I correct, Otzi, that the note catcher has a spot for this? It may or may not. If it doesn't,
additional notes if
okay.
Somebody hasn't been using that section.
So you can use that, or you can use your notebook. Chances are, I bet you have a place where you put your to-do list and you have a little spot already. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, Otzi, let's do 30 seconds.
Okay.
When I say go, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna give you 30 seconds and you just write down as many things that you need to do. Don't go yet. I know your brain's already going, right? Don't go yet. When I say go, write anything that you need to do professionally or personally, just put all your to-do items on your piece of paper. Okay, are we ready? All right, Otzi, go. Have at it. Write it all out as much as you can write.
That's time.
Hey, go ahead and finish your sentence if you're writing. If you're done, go ahead and put your writing utensil down. Take a look at your list. Just get a sense for your list. Any emotions that you're feeling right now. Maybe not jot those down as well. Level of stress just from writing down that list. Jot that down. All right, now what I invite you to do is we're going to do a quick 1-minute meditation. We're going to get into that common alert place again. So feel your tailbone connected to the seat. If you are sitting, shoulders down, straight spine, hands down at your knees or your thighs. And then I invite you to close your eyes or gaze down, whatever feels comfortable for you. And now that we're in that position, we're going to put our next focus on our breath. No need to change the breath, just bring awareness to the breath. So notice the breath flowing in and out of the nose. Maybe the breath feels shallow, maybe it feels deep. Whatever it is, it's okay. Just full focus on the breath, flowing in, flowing out. Breath in, breath out. attention on the breath, breath in, breath out. And next, I invite you to just do a quick body scan. So notice anywhere in your body where you may be feeling uncomfortable sensations. Maybe some tension in your shoulders. Maybe some tightness in your jaw or your belly, or just noticing. And then see if you can bring breath to those areas of the body, and through the breath, offering some softness to that area of the body, just letting it relax, feel a little bit heavier. I'm ready to come back to the body, back to the room, the virtual space, wiggling fingers and toes. And when you're ready, eyes open. Okay. Now, guess what you get to do? You get to go back to your to-do list. Otzi's going to give us another 30 seconds, and we want you to just simply add to it.
Go.
Go.
That's it.
Okay, go ahead and finish your last to do if you're writing. Now, we did the to-do list, and then we did that 1-minute meditation, and then you were asked to go back to your to-do list. So let's just take a moment and let's get curious. What did you notice about that experience? First writing your to-do list, then the 1-minute meditation, and then going back and adding to your to-do list. What did you notice? And you can put it in the chat. I've got the chat open right here. Less stress. So I'm assuming, Dawn, less stress when you went back to the to-do list. Okay. Yes. Thank you for clarifying. I felt more relaxed and wrote down more meaningful tasks. We hear this often, Deborah. We hear that when people write down their tasks before, it has to do with others. And then when they take that mindful meditation, then they're thinking about things to do for themselves. I could remember more things that needed to be done. I wasn't uptight over it, though. You had a different relationship with your to-do list. Yes, good insight, Abby. Oftentimes our to-do list is like, it's stress provoking, and we frantically, jot it down, and then we cancel something, or, scratch something out and then add something else to it. Simply taking 1 minute can change the relationship to our to-dos, where we don't feel so stressed, when we can just look at it simply for tasks that need to be done. And what I love when Otzi and I do this in person, we get to see it. So it's like, normally it's like, they're like frantically jotting it all down, jotting it. How many can I get down there? And then after the mindful meditation, sometimes people just sit there and they stare at their list. So it's interesting just taking that 1 minute to bring down and use our top brain. We can have a different relationship with our stress. And that even, we can think about the power of the 1-minute meditation that we did, which you can see on the screen. We can do that 1 minute in the car, before we go into our classroom, when our kids go out to recess, to have that 1 minute for ourselves, and how impactful it can be. Okay, let's talk boundaries. Otzi, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this. Okay, so we're going to start this conversation off just with a quote about personal boundaries. Setting boundaries is a way of caring for myself. It doesn't make me mean, selfish, or uncaring just because I don't do things your way. I care about me too. And this, I think, is just kind of a great way of setting the tone for this next piece of conversation, just because especially anybody who is in a caregiving profession, we tend to always put others first, right? We put our students first, we put our families first, everybody else comes first, and then we're always taking the short stick as far as what our needs are, right? So I'm going to talk through this somewhat quickly just because I really want to make sure that we're honoring everybody's time. But on your note catching the handout, you have a list of the different types of boundaries. Physical boundaries are pretty clear, so I'm not going to go too much into those. Obviously, if somebody is within our bubble, we feel that pretty quickly. And we already know we want to step away, or we want to walk away from that other person in order to give ourselves that space. Some of the others are a little more vague. So like intellectual boundaries and emotional boundaries, those can be a little more tricky, right? If, let's say, we hold certain values and we're speaking with somebody who has opposing values, and they're almost trying to convince us that they're right and our values are wrong, we start to feel that discomfort. That's where that boundary lies with us, right? And so when somebody is attempting to impose on that, that's when we need to think about, is this a boundary for me? What do I need to do in order to protect myself physically, mentally, etc., right? Emotional boundaries can be very similar. I had once my husband had said to me something about well, you're being too sensitive, or you shouldn't feel that way, or something like that. And of course, that was a boundary for me because my emotions are my emotions and I'm going to express them and share them. That was a boundary that I had to put down for myself. One last boundary on there was time. And that's one that I really want, especially all you educators out there, to really think about more closely. What are some of those time boundaries that I feel that I really need to be a little more mindful of? So I'm going to ask Jenna to move on to the next slide, where we have some options of things that we can do when we do feel like somebody is pushing in or crossing our boundaries. So the first one is the power of and. Oftentimes we use, yes, I have all of this, but, and the word but will minimize all of our needs, right? Yes, I know you have all of these things to do, but I have all of these other things too, and it makes them sound almost less than. Versus if we say, yes, there's all of these things that need to get done, and I also have this list of things that needs to get done, we're honoring both ourselves as well as the needs of somebody else. We can start practicing no and not yet. Again, those of us that tend to be really independent, we have our own classrooms. We don't necessarily want to tell anybody no. We want to be people pleasers, and we need to use that practice of saying no or not yet. Not yet is kind of that pause in between. It gives us a little more time to think through, right? We want to practice that. We want to ask for help when we can. Sometimes we don't have a lot of help available, and sometimes there is help and we just don't know how to access it or don't want to access it because we think it may feel like if you're asking for help that you don't necessarily know what you're doing. And that's not necessarily the case, right? Sometimes we do need to ask and delegate where we can as well, right? Sometimes we can say, hey, I really need help with this, or can you please do that for me? Sometimes our students can be helpful as well. But these are just some strategies to practice. So there is a space on your note-taking guide where I do want to just give you a minute or two here to think about what are some examples or what are some real life scenarios that you've experienced where people are crossing your boundaries, and how can you have used one of these strategies, or maybe there's another strategy that you used in order to help you to really reinforce that boundary. Okay. So maybe we could just take a quick minute. I'll set my alarm again. Okay, and that is our minute. I'm not going to ask you to put your scenarios into the chat, but if there is a strategy that you want to try or you want to practice, please feel free to put that in the chat. And just another consideration for you, sometimes it's helpful to have an accountability partner. A lot of times Jenna's my accountability partner. So if I need somebody to really help me, support me through something especially something that's hard, it's helpful for me to have somebody else I know I can lean on in order to get more of that accountability. So a few things for you to think about. I apologize we didn't take more time on boundaries, and I could literally spend 3, 4, 5 hours just talking about boundaries. So I want you to continue to think about it, and practice as much as you can. So our final moment of acknowledgement here. Some days are going to be more of a struggle than others. That's okay. And you need to forgive yourself in order to keep going and growing. And we're going to do just a quick summary within our closing. Jenna, would you like to do that one?
Yeah, so oftentimes we find with webinars, or even when it comes to instruction, the brain needs time to digest. We can actually learn better and retain better if we slow down at the end of our lessons or webinars to give our brain time. And we know we're at the close end. We probably are going to be going over with Q&A. So please hang out with us for a few minutes after your time zone. It's 5 o'clock our time. But we just wanted to give you a minute. I'm going to put some calming music on and go through your note catcher. Think about some of those activities and experiences, ahas, insights that you had when with the content and the experiences today. And maybe just one thing that you feel like stood out for you, and then maybe even one thing that you would want to share with others. Sorry, I think I just lost my music, so we might not have music. There it is.
You don't want me to sing for you?
Bye. Okay, and that was a minute. Pass it back to you, Otzi.
Yeah. So it is 5 o'clock. We just want to thank you for being here, for taking the moment for yourselves. Please continue to practice some of those strategies. Take care of yourself. If you have a moment, please use the QR code. We really appreciate the feedback. We really do our best. And this is one of our favorite trainings. So we really appreciate the feedback in order to keep improving on it. And Dawn also put that link in the chat for you if that's easier than using the QR code. Again, we will be staying on for a few more minutes in case you had any questions that you wanted answered. Otherwise, have a great evening, and we look forward to seeing you at part 2, which will be October the 1st. If you haven't registered, we'll be sending out the registration information.
Yes, please come. I just want to, this
Oh,
is a little bit about session 2. I'll go back to the QR code so you have it as well. And then Don did put a link to sign up for session 2. So we're going to be moving from self to really looking at how we can create a community of care at our school and not it be such an isolated thing.
Mhm.
All right, we ready for Q&A? If you need that QR code, just let me know. I can go back to it.
And I think Dawn is going to be sending it out as well.
Great.
Mhm. So if you have any
Okay.
questions, we have the chat open, we have the Q&A code. Feel free to use either. And we also have our information here in case you wanted to reach out at a later time. As Jenna mentioned, we do this training as well. Typically it's longer, which is why it was a little hard to get all the information in there today. But if you did want to reach out, we do a number of workshops in person, virtually, and definitely a big need right now where we see a lot of not necessarily burnout, but some compassion fatigue in the work that we do as educators.
Okay, did we see any questions for Q&A? Any questions you'd like to ask us? Thank you for your comment, Deborah. She said, I will share with my new teacher candidates, and I will work to implement for myself many of the responses when my boundaries are crossed.
Excellent.
Okay, well, I know a common question we get, Otzi, I think it's almost every time that we have Q&A time after this, is that the question is, when I go to meditate or when I go to be presently focused, my mind just keeps racing. So how can we support ourselves and how can we actually calm an overactive mind? Yeah, should we talk through that one?
Yeah.
That's a big one. I can identify with that too. I think an overactive mind is the puppy.
Mhm.
And at first, when we sit down to meditate or do a mindfulness activity, it can be hard. It can actually be painful. I know that sounds dramatic. It's not physically painful, but it's almost like if I have an overactive mind and I sit to meditate, it's almost like I feel my energy, like I want to crawl out of my skin and go and do those dishes that need to be done.
Mhm.
So if you have an overactive mind, we all do, just know that's completely normal in this day and age to have an overactive mind and stick with it. So start with small chunks of meditation or mindfulness, an activity that you prefer, one of the activities we did today, and stick with it, set a timer, and help yourself by focusing on a focal point. So typically that's your breath. Sometimes it's an area of a body. Sometimes it's even movement. So an overactive mind doing a walking meditation or some kind of physical movement with the breath as the focal point can actually help slow down the mind. The mind will slow down eventually, but it will take time. It will take repetition and consistency.
We need
Anything
to
you
give
want
ourselves we need to give ourselves a bit of grace as well. I know whenever I was thinking the word meditate, I imagine somebody sitting on top of a mountain, sitting in like crisscross, and clearing your mind, right? And so I was really hard on myself about that. Like, oh, I just can't do this. I can't clear my mind. And what I learned was it's not about clearing your mind. It is about honoring the the thoughts that come in, noticing them and letting them go. But you're really just kind of watching your thoughts almost pass through your head. And that is the practice that you kind of get into. to where you can start to slow your mind down. But initially, especially, it really does, it really is about giving yourself that space, just knowing that you're going to have a lot of thoughts at first, but they will slow down. So just be patient with yourself as you're kind of moving through this, because it can be hard.
Another great strategy for that when you're noticing that you're getting distracted away from your focal point is just having the prompt thinking. So you're noticing you're thinking, you're calling it out, thinking, and then you're going back to the breath.
Jenna, we have a question in the Q&A. How do you feel about eye masks for calming?
Oh, how do I feel about it?
I love
Personally? Yeah, I love eye masks. I don't always need them, but I do find anytime that we can tame down our five senses, it helps us to slow our nervous system down and to tune inward. So that's why the bee breathing, plugging our ears and hearing that humming, that's another reason why it's calming, is we're taking all of those external senses and we're going inward. So eye masks, I think, are great, and just a nice kind of sensory soothing to the physical body too. What about you, Otzi?
Oh yeah, I was thinking about one. I don't have this one anymore, but I had one that had like beads in it, so it was a little weighted, and it was also lavender scented. So just like
Oh,
you're saying, as far as the senses, so you feel like that pressure, almost that little pressure on your eyes, also kind of blocking the sense of sight, so you're not looking around to distract you with anything. And then the lavender, which is obviously calming, super helpful.
yeah.
So definitely 2 thumbs up on eye masks. Thanks for the question, Flo.
All right, how about one more? I don't see one. Oh, in the Q&A, do we have another one?
Oh man, Dawn has a heated lavender eye mask. Dawn, you got to hook us up with that one.
Even in the Phoenix Metro Valley, huh? A heated, a heated eye mask. I bet that's incredibly soothing for like
Yeah,
inflammation of the skin.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about time, because that was something that was brought up at the beginning. And that is something also that comes up a lot, Otzi, when we do our workshops, is I just feel like I don't have time to devote to myself, or I just don't feel like I have time to do some of these strategies that I know I need to do, but there's just so much. What are your thoughts on that, Otzi?
I think I definitely fall into that sometimes, where I just, no, I don't have time. I don't have time. Um, And I like having the things to do that are just kind of within my day, even just breathing. I've been trying to go to yoga a little more often now. And what I've noticed is that, I mean, great that I can make it to yoga from time to time. But what I've noticed as kind of a result of that is that I'm more conscious of my breathing. So I can consciously slow my breathing down throughout the day, and that will automatically help me refocus, re-energize. Somebody in the chat had mentioned the exercise that we did with the to-do list and the 1 minute meditation, how your brain just kind of slows down. You can remember a little bit more, you can function a little more clearly, and that's exactly what I see. So I love exercises like that will allow us to just kind of in the moment. It's still not going to remove all of the stress, and that's not the goal. The goal is to be able to kind of function through it, right? It's a little more calmly. So I really like those types of practices that you can just do
Such
through
a
the
good
day.
point. The goal is not to remove all the stress. The goal is to be able to work and move through it. Oh my gosh, I love that. I think of I practical ways to move through your day where you're just more conscious of the movement. And Otzi spoke to that with just bringing awareness to the breath. 2 words that changed my life is slow down. Just think of your movement, because think about how quick you move through the hallway, up to your room, blah, blah, you know, getting in the car, getting the coffee, like eating, we frantically eat. Like, you know, if that speed was a 9, just bring it down to a 7. It's not going to, I promise you, it's not going to cause you to be late. There is time where maybe you need to rush. Most of the time we don't need to. We just trick our bodies into that we have to rush to get to the next thing. And we're addicted sometimes to doing. So if we turn it down to a 7 and we just slow down a little bit, maybe we walk a little bit slower to the bathroom, you know, right when we tell we have to run to the bathroom, got to run to the bathroom. No, walk to the bathroom, slow down and walk. Slow down when you drink your water and notice it going into your body. Slow down when you eat. That actually is huge. And that you don't really need any more time. You're just changing your relationship with your time a bit. And then just notice too, sometimes as professional caregivers and mothers and teachers, and, you know, sometimes we get into the people pleasing, we tend to put others' needs before ourselves. And so when we tell ourselves we don't have time to take care of ourselves, what are we saying is more important in the moment? So, you know, yes, we have to get to lesson plans, and yes, we have to grade those papers, all those things on our to-do list, and taking a minute for ourselves, walking outside to get some fresh air, walking slowly to the bathroom, being conscious of our breath, is taking care of ourselves in the moment. And it really doesn't take that much time away from the time that you devote to all you're doing, because everybody's got a lot to do. We know that for sure. Okay. Do we see any more questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Thanks for hanging out after hours for us for some Q&A, and we look forward to seeing everybody for session 2 next week. Take care.